I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, looks like flu season may have peaked. An update on flu cases here in the county. Another surge in sea lion rescues. Hundreds of pups found sick and starving on the California coast. The challenges researchers face trying to save them.
Plus, the longest-running Tet Festival in San Diego starts Friday night. I'm Peggy Pico with a preview of why this year's Vietnamese New Year celebration is extra special. But first, the legal and local impact of the court injunction to temporarily stop President Obama's executive order to expand immigration relief to hundreds of thousands of children and parents living in the U.S. without documentation.
Tourists that came up and they finally made it to the clean side. They were like, is it safe to walk down that way? I'm like, yeah, just go ahead. There are people too.
The writing is on the wall for an East Village eyesore, why neighbors and the city see hope beyond the graffiti. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The flu season here in the county may have hit a new milestone. The health department reported 11 more flu-related deaths. 54 people have died so far. The latest lab tests show the flu season may have reached its peak. Doctors say the number of reported cases were actually down last week. The public will soon have a chance to weigh in on the new stadium plans for San Diego. The Mayor's Citizens Task Force is holding a public forum on March 2nd at the Qualcomm Stadium Club Lounge. Now, tomorrow on Midday Edition on the radio, Mayor Kevin Faulconer will join us. He's expected to respond to the Charger's criticism of his stadium task force. A new poll out says it's a wide open race for California's U.S. Senate seat next year. Voters were asked about 18 potential candidates and the one declared candidate, Kamala Harris. The question, are you inclined to vote for this person? Now, the largest number supported former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, but she's not considering a run at all. Former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa is a potential candidate. 47% said they weren't inclined to vote for him. And Oceanside Assemblyman Rocky Chavez also made the list. You can find that poll, the results, on our website, kpbs.org. Now we have our first look at the results of a new California law. DMV has issued 59,000 licenses to people who are in the country illegally. Hundreds of people applied for licenses last month. California is now one of 10 states to offer licenses to immigrants without legal status. The state expects to issue more than 1 million licenses over the next 3 years. Many people are asking what's next for immigration reform. Peggy Pico has a look at the legal ramifications of a temporary injunction putting the president's expansion programs on hold.
In a last-minute ruling in Texas Southern District Federal Court, Judge Andrew Hanen ruled in favor of 26 states' legal challenge to President Obama's executive action that would expand programs to hundreds of thousands of immigrant children and their parents living in the country without documentation. Here with local reaction and the legal ramifications are my guest, legal analyst Dan Eaton, and immigration attorney Lilia Velasquez. Lilia, remind us of what this what the executive order was from President Obama.
We had an expanded DACA, which actually removed the age cap. It was, 35 years old. Now you can be 40 and still qualify for DACA if you meet the other requirements. The other major change is that you can, as long as you have resided in the U.S. since January 15th of 2010, you will qualify. Before, the date was June 15th of 2007. So a lot more people will qualify under the expanded DACA.
And just remind people what DACA is, who that applies to.
It applies to primarily students, the dreamers, that's why we call them the dreamers, who have completed high school, who were under the age of 16 when they came to the United States, and who do not have any serious criminal past. And they can present their high school diploma, or at least proof of enrollment in the GED program. So very narrow categories. And they were anticipating that 1.4 million would apply, and that figure is cut in half. And so now they're expanding, and we're hoping that more of the dreamers will qualify. And the second part was DAPA for the parents who have U.S. citizen children. or lawful permanent resident children who have been here for the last 5 years, and also they're law-abiding citizens.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and Dan, on the legal side of this, about 24 states, including Texas, challenged the president's authority to have this executive order. What are their legal arguments?
Well, their basic arguments is that he went too far, that this was really lawmaking. This was not administrative, and he violated the Administrative Procedures Act, which requires the public to have notice and to be able to weigh in. And the judge, in his 123-page ruling, said, you know what, on the procedural aspect, maybe they should have given public notice, and I'm going to block this order because they didn't. This feels more like a substantive change as opposed to a general policy pronouncement where the president has some broad latitude.
Well, President Obama has vowed to fight this. It says he would win a legal battle. He said, quote, he'd prevail in a legal battle on this. What's the constitutional right of a president to use executive order on immigration policy?
Well, Peggy, it starts with the president's broad power over immigration policy. Remember, immigration is fundamentally and exclusively a federal question. The only reason the states are involved at all is because they say they're going to be hurt, because they're going to have additional expenditures, because it's going to authorize certain people to remain in this country. So the president has broad action. As far as deferred action, that's a little bit more difficult to determine whether he has specific authority like that. But the bottom line is that the president has broad power to decide how to allocate certain resources in prosecuting wrongs about immigration or other laws.
Well, Lily, even if the president wins this legal battle on appeal, what effect is this court challenge having on immigrants, I should say, here in San Diego?
Well, it's going to legalize, I mean, temporarily at least, a large segment of the immigrant population in California. We're the most populated state as far as immigrants is concerned. So California is in the forefront. And so you would have parents that would be able to get a permit to work and be here with their children. And then you would have a larger group of dreamers who would qualify for DACA. So the effect is going to be phenomenal.
Sure, if it goes through. But I'm wondering, what about the fact this challenge, the court challenge? Is there some doubt in the community? What's happening as far as, because this challenge is on the table now?
What I have seen so far is that some people who were very skeptical, they're saying, you see, attorney, I told you, it was a lie. And so now they're very, very, they're thinking as to whether or not they want to apply. But the other segment of the people, and I think that's the majority who are saying, yeah, but they keep telling us that the president will win. Of course the president will win, and it's just going to take a little longer. We tell the people, continue to gather your documents so we can, file your case. Don't give up.
Let's talk about that time frame, Dan. If this injunction is overruled in an appeal, can that appeal be appealed, and how long could this be tied up in the courts?
Well, I mean, how long is the answer is blowing in the wind when you're talking about law. But the bottom line is most people expect the appeals to be expedited, meaning that they're going to move this along. And yes, it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court eventually, but this will be wrapped up. We'll know the final answer to this before the end of this year, Peggy.
All right, Attorney Dan Heaton and Attorney Lilia Velasquez, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Going on the market soon, armed drones from the U.S. State Department says it's changing policy to allow the sale of military drones to so-called friendly nations and allies, but there are strings attached. The drones cannot be used for unlawful surveillance or force, and only for internationally sanctioned military operations. Graffiti and blight plague a prime piece of property in San Diego's East Village downtown. It was left vacant when the city opened the new library more than a year ago. Now, KPBS reporter Matt Bowler explains community members and the city want to breathe new life into the old facility.
People are just scared to walk down the street.
Alfonso Reyes has been in business in the East Village for 20 years. He runs Pokey's, a Mexican restaurant at the corner of 10th and E, 1 block from the old library building. He says after the library left, the neighborhood changed.
Tourists that came up and they finally made it to the clean side. They were like, is it safe to walk down that way? I'm like, yeah, just go ahead. There are people too, but stay away from the one that's yelling out of his top of his head,
What's in store for this part of the East Village is still up in the air, even after a year and a half.
Most certainly, the Downtown Central Library is a prime piece of real estate, and it's going to drive economic growth.
That's Christina Chadwick from the Downtown San Diego Partnership. They're a nonprofit advocacy group for downtown businesses. Chadwick says the Downtown Partnership wants the city to make long-term plans for the historic building.
We'd be able to work with education life sciences, startup industry. I think that there's plenty of opportunity for everybody here.
Councilman Todd Gloria represents this part of town. He says, yes, let's make long-term plans, but in the meantime, there's another option for the empty building.
I just happen to believe that we can do something there in the near future that accrues to the benefit of downtown and whoever ends up, utilizing the space.
Gloria says that if the city invests a little bit to make the old library move-in ready, that could buy the city 3, 4, or even 5 years to make a good long-term plan.
And in that length of time, we could find a way forward, either partnering with a private sector developer to do something hopefully iconic on that site that would be befitting of downtown and yield enough revenue for the city to make it worth our while. I think that would be an elegant solution. Back
at Pokey's Mexican restaurant, when I asked Reyes what he thinks should happen with the old library, he says no one's asked him before.
I don't think nobody cares about me, but...
After 2 decades downtown, Reyes says these couple of blocks have become safer, and now he's worried he'll be priced out of the East Village. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Sea lion pups are running into trouble again along the California coast. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson joins us with more on the situation. Eric, looks like animal rescue centers along the coast are being kept very busy these days. What's going on?
Well, Dwayne, rescue centers are being swamped with undernourished sea lions. Since the first of the year, 940 of the marine mammals have been picked up and taken to wildlife rescue centers. 550 animals are currently being cared for. Now, here in San Diego, SeaWorld has taken in 230 sea lions this year. And just to put that into perspective, there are about 230 sea lion rescues during the first 4 months of a typical year. This year's total already 4 times higher than that. And the most strandings typically happen in March or April.
So we're seeing far more than usual. Why are these pups in trouble?
Well, scientists don't have any definitive answers, but they think the situation may be related to warmer ocean waters. They say sea lion mothers breed on 2 of the Channel Islands, and researchers say most of the pups there are underweight. The thought is that warmer ocean temperatures are forcing moms to swim further for less food. There may also be a disease involved. Now, once those skinny pups start weaning off their mom's milk, scientists are worried that the number of strandings will go up sharply.
And Eric, this is the second year we've seen so many of these pups rescued. Is the species in trouble?
Yeah, it's the second time in 3 years, and actually the sea lion population has been increasing steadily since 1975. There are about 300,000 of the marine mammals, and some scientists are asking whether the die-offs are a sign that perhaps the coastal environment has reached its carrying capacity for sea lions.
KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson. Some San Diego researchers have discovered a colorful new species. Sea dragons are closely related to seahorses, but they're bigger and they have elaborate appendages to help them blend in with kelp and seaweed. The newly discovered species is called the ruby sea dragon. Its unique color offers clues about where it dwells.
We think that the ruby sea dragon may be red because it may inhabit deeper waters than the other 2 sea dragon species.
The discovery was made using museum samples. Next, the researchers want to see the ruby sea dragon in the wild. From up-close exhibits of animals and birds that live in our area to native plant gardens and walking trails, the Living Coast Discovery Center in Chula Vista has been given a new lifeline.
Located on the Sweetwater Marsh National Wildlife Refuge at the south end of the bay, this nonprofit zoo and aquarium nearly went out of business 14 months ago. That's when the community rallied and raised more than $400,000 to keep it afloat.
We did everything we could to spread the word. I was on Facebook every day, and we created some fundraisers.
This is where you'll see more than 300 native species, up close and personal, where students collaborate with researchers to learn more about our environment, and where parents bring children to experience animal life in a whole new way. Today, the Living Coast Discovery Center received a $2 million check from SDG&E to keep the center going for at least another 25 years. Ben Vallejo started as a student volunteer and eventually worked his way up to becoming the center's chief financial officer.
This $2 million endowment from SDG&E will provide about $90,000 every year in perpetuity to support the general operations of the Living Coast Discovery Center.
We believe that jewels like this need to have the private sector step up and help. And so we're hopeful that our contributions here will encourage others to step forward, to come out here and to see the value of this great asset that we have here in South Bay.
The endowment was a condition of the California Coastal Commission's approval of relocating a power plant in the area. The Living Coast Discovery Center has served the community for more than 26 years. It used to be known as the Chula Vista Nature Center. San Diego City Council votes next week on the most controversial development proposal on their agenda, One Paseo in Carmel Valley. KPBS North County editor Allison St. John says it illustrates a conundrum about San Diego's future growth.
The One Paseo site is an empty 23-acre field that sits less than a mile east of Interstate 5 in affluent Carmel Valley, a developer's dream location. Here's an artist's rendering of what the proposed project would look like. It has 600 housing units, a small park, shops, and, perhaps most controversial, a 150-foot-high office building. Developer John Kilroy says it's mixed use because that's what the community requested.
After 6 years now and tens of millions of dollars going through the process, we think we've arrived at a terrific plan that's going to be terrific for everybody.
A lot of these center trees are going to be going away for turn pockets, right?
Ken Ferinsky was one of the first community members Kilroy approached with the idea of a mixed-use project.
And we were, yes, the community would love a mixed-use project on the site. I was one of the original proponents for One Paseo.
But when Ferinsky began to realize the scale of the project and the traffic it would generate, he became a vocal spokesman for the opposition group, What Price Main Street.
The main objection to this site is traffic. You know, they're generating 23,000 trips a day, which requires them to widen streets, to divert traffic through neighborhoods by schools, elementary schools. Kids will have to get to the elementary school, they'll have to walk across 9 lanes of traffic.
One Paseo is car-centric. Kilroy acknowledges that, but he says he's spending more than $6 million on signals and improvements to intersections.
40 intersections in the greater Carmel Valley area. And then we're doing about $3.8 million beyond that at our own election. And what this will have is the most modern traffic signal system in the country.
The conundrum for Carmel Valley is that developing this site means more traffic. And that's because public transit doesn't serve this area. But without more dense development, public transit isn't feasible.
Going through here.
Former San Diego City Planning Chief Mike Stepner says public transit like buses and trains are not financially sustainable except in more densely populated cities.
It's always a chicken and egg thing. In the olden days, 100 years ago, you built the transit first and then the development came.
Now Stepner says it's the other way around. Stepner started off skeptical of the project, but he's worked as a consultant for Kilroy to make the development more community-friendly, with bike lanes, pedestrian-friendly boulevards and public spaces. He says the region needs developments like these to meet its housing needs.
We are short in this region 333,000 housing units we're going to need over the next 25, 30 years. They're proposing about 600. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket, but it really creates a housing. It creates a critical mass to support all these things. And then if you have enough of that, it will bring transit.
Kilroy would provide a shuttle bus to the nearest coaster station in Sorrento Valley. But Don Mosier, a Del Mar city councilman who sits on San Diego's regional planning board, says he's seen no plans to bring more public transit to serve the area.
You know, I see the 2050 regional transportation plan, and I don't see any proposed solution for this area that will improve transit access.
The city of Del Mar has voted to oppose One Paseo.
Frankly, when I hear the developers talk about smart growth, this is the opposite of smart growth. This is really the opposite. It doesn't conform to the transit plan, doesn't conform to the community plan, and it has major negative impacts on the surrounding communities.
Developer Kilroy says he's modified the plan as much as he can.
We have addressed density. The project that we propose today is 1/3 less than what we proposed originally. The buildings height on the office buildings, which are the tallest, are roughly 25% reduced from what we originally proposed and 20 feet lower than what we just proposed in October.
They have to go all the way back.
Verinsky says the project is still triple the density and generates 4 times the traffic that the 1975 community plan allows.
You know, this project is so over the top that they can reduce it by a third, and it's still too big. We're not NIMBYs. People are for a mixed-use project on this site. We are pro-development. We're just against this massive overdevelopment.
But we can't make it smaller than it is right now. It just won't work.
Mike Stepner says One Paseo is trying to build more density while creating a sense of community, the town center that Carmel Valley needs.
If it doesn't work out financially that you can't afford to do the improvements to the streets in the same way, the public spaces in the same way, then you really have something that's just another shopping center. And I think that's the issue. And what the development team has been trying to do is balance all that.
The San Diego City Council will weigh its options next Monday. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story.
On the next NewsHour, we sit down with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, to discuss the rise of Islamic extremism. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
An amazing find from the author who asks questions with answers in rhyme. Dr. Seuss has a new book coming out for the first time in 25 years. Random House is taking pre-orders for What Pet Should I Get? It goes on sale in July. The book was found recently at the author's La Jolla home. There were also manuscripts and sketches. The 10th annual Tet Festival kicks off this weekend in Mira, Mesa. Peggy Pico has a preview of the Vietnamese Lunar New Year celebration.
The Mira Mesa Tet Festival, organized by the Vietnamese American Youth Alliance, ushers in the Year of the Goat. Here with why this year's festival is extra special is Alexander Nguyen with the Vietnamese American Youth Alliance. And Alex, this is considered one of the largest celebrations of the year in the Vietnamese community. Why is it so important and so significant?
It's significant because for the Vietnamese community, it's New Year and Christmas all rolled into one. It's the time where people get together and celebrate with each other, family gatherings. It's also the time where the kids get presents from the adults. In this case, it's in the red envelope with money, so it's lucky money for the year. So it's, so
Christmas and New Year's all rolled into one. Who wouldn't like that? Yeah. There was another Tet Festival at Qualcomm last weekend. How many people do you expect at this festival this weekend in Mira Mesa?
In Mira Mesa, we expect anywhere between 20,000 to 30,000 because we're an open-air festival and it's free admission. There's no real way to gauge how many people got there. So we always go off on estimates, and we estimate between 20 to 30,000 because that's the number we usually typically get.
Wow. Now, this is also the 10th anniversary of this festival here now in Mira Mesa, but you're also going to be observing the 40th year of the fall of Saigon, which is a rather somber experience. How are you going to be dealing with that anniversary?
We're doing that. We'll deal with that at the opening ceremony where, we commemorate all the fallen soldiers and everyone else. And throughout the festival in the cultural village, we have the replica of the first fishing boat that made it to Australia that started the whole boat people movement and the diaspora from Vietnam. And so we have a replica of that so that people can understand the history. It's why so many people escaped communist Vietnam to try to find a better life.
Why was it important to include this history, this historical situation in this celebration?
When we were planning it, we knew it was going to be the 10th anniversary. And then just by happenstance, we saw that it was going to be the 40th year of the fall of Saigon and the 45th year of the Hue Massacre. And since the Hue Massacre happened during that in 1969, we figured this is a perfect time to put all that together and to make it a very important celebration for the Vietnamese community, commemorating the fall of Saigon and the Hue Massacre and everyone else that's involved in it.
So that's the significant history, but there's also just going to be some fun going on there. What are some of the things you can do at the festival?
There's festival, there's rides. It's a carnival atmosphere, which is what we wanted to project. It's fun for the whole family. You can see all the intimate, especially the Miss Vietnam pageant, which happens during the Saturday, and also a lot of cultural entertainment all 3 days. And just fun for whole family.
And food, lots of food we were talking
yes.
about. All right, Alex Quinn, thank you so much and Happy New Year. And I want to let folks know that the 10th annual Tet Festival at Mesa Community Park starts this Friday night and runs through Sunday, February 22nd. It's free and open to everyone.
We're expecting mostly sunshine and mild weather this week. We're looking at temperatures to cool a bit along the coast, 60s and upper 50s. The Inland Valley will see highs in mostly the 70s tomorrow, then dipping back into the upper 50s for the rest of the week. The mountains are looking at similar weather with 60s and 70s, plenty of sunshine, and another winter warm-up in the desert with daytime highs near 80 degrees this week. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Midday Edition, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer responds to the Chargers' criticism of his stadium task force, and the mayor will take your calls. Midday Edition starts at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.